Now, we have some talks today and as well as tomorrow on various topics, but today's are going to focus on generative AI in education. So our first talk is by Ryan Cooper, who's presenting Generative AI in Engineering Education, a tool for learning, not a replacement for skills. As we're going through this talk, remember you can post your questions on Slack. I think my thread should have just went up as I was saying this message for the questions thread. So feel free to add your questions there and upvote questions that you like. So without further ado, go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. So I'm Ryan Cooper. I'm from the University of Connecticut. I'm in the mechanical engineering department. I was assistant, now associate professor, but now about 9 years, almost 10, almost a decade, teaching mechanical engineering and talking. A lot of it's been like Python and Jupyter. That's my jam. I love doing scientific computing. I love getting students to code and solve problems. And it's mostly mechanical engineers, so we don't have to worry about what is object-oriented program? It's forget about that. Let's just go nuts. Let's try something cool. Download this software. Let's build something. So when generative AI started becoming, it was really about 2 years ago where it became apparent that this is really, it's in the classroom. And if it's not in the classroom, it's outside the classroom, but it's part of the learning process now. So I've been dealing with that and trying to build ways of useful integrations of AI in the classroom for engineering education, and then specifically UConn students, because that's kind of who I'm teaching. But I think a lot of it kind of spreads out, even to users. If you're dealing with users in a community that are submitting AI-generated work, I think a lot of the lessons that educators are learning the hard way you can listen to those and kind of gain a lot of insights into how to manage what you know is AI, but you can't prove it's AI. So how do you approach the person? How do you talk about it? How do you do a constructive kind of evaluation of what your community expects? And that's kind of how I see it. It's this is our learning community. Let's take care of each other. Okay, so it's not a replacement for skills. And let me get my mouse. There we go. So who am I? I just said I'm from UConn. I'll bring us over to our, and if you want, you can scan that tiny, now it's a tiny QR code, but QR code. But that one has all the slides from today. So I'll bring it back up at the end if you want. And then you could grab any links. If you like any of this, or you even just like the format of it, you can just steal it, reformat it however you want. So this is me. I'm Professor Ryan Cooper. I have office hours through Calendly. I have this YouTube channel. A lot of it is hours of me in a classroom lecturing and problem solving with students. So some of it's not super interesting. Some of it's more interesting. At least I think it's kind of cool. It's I take textbook problems and then try to use AI to solve the problem. And the goal for me, one was just all right, how do I use this? How does it help me in my engineering, kind of problem solving process? But students use it as a scaffolding experiment of all right, this is what Professor Cooper did. How do I use this tool in the same kind of way? So some people are watching that. I mean, I'm up to, I don't want to brag, but I've got 100 followers, 120 subscribers. So I'm kind of a big deal. And also, if you come to my website, I have every class that I teach, I build up a Jupyter book for that class. And our next speaker, Professor Barbara, I've still taken some of her work and put it into some of my classwork. So my newest class is my data-driven decisions, and I'll talk a little bit about how we used AI in that class. And then computational mechanics. This was the first class where I really noticed, oh, this is definitely AI. I've never seen a comment in a code in 8 years, and then all of a sudden, every line of code is perfectly aligned comments. And this, not to say that you didn't do it, but I really don't think this was us, guys. It's great that you have a solution and it's working. You didn't get any errors, but Why do you think it worked? Why did it tell you to do it that way? So that was like my first kind of place where I saw that. So that's me, that's who I am, that's why I'm here. I love Python, love scientific computing. Welcome to my classroom. This is my kind of learning philosophy that I subject all of my students to. There's Bloom's taxonomy. Quick like thumbs up. Have you heard of Bloom's taxonomy? A lot of people. Nice. Okay. So I won't like. Does anybody know? Like, definitely not. Never heard of it. A few. Okay. All right. So then I'll still explain. Bloom's taxonomy. The way that I like to look at it is like it classifies different parts of learning. So like remembering something. Can you go through a multiple choice kind of test and show that you remember details from the class? That's like kind of remembering. Versus like building something, maybe that's like writing a full report. You analyzed a whole bunch of stuff, you collected facts, and you actually built something new. Some people like to organize it as a pyramid of like, you must remember things, and then you can start to compare them, but I don't like that, because you can't remember anything without analyzing it. Like your brain is a very complicated machine. So I love like cycles, like the hero's journey of the learning cycle. So I bring my students through this process through like every course that I design. Every kind of assignment is kind of building this hero's journey of like, it's dangerous to go alone. Here, take this numerical methods computation book. So I have students remember like, what are their lived experiences? What are some things that you know coming into this class? And how are we going to use that when we build a new model? So like mechanical engineers, they've solved lots of equations. Let's say that at one point they had 4 equations with 4 unknowns. Wow, that was a hard time to solve. It took a long time to solve that. Introduce like a new model, like in this comparison thing of like, all right, well, what if a computer could solve that for you? And so then we introduce like, okay, here's linear algebra. This is how we can set up those equations. So now we're starting to apply a new method to ideas that we already knew or some kind of observation that we already had. Now we're building things and we need to communicate those results, reflect on them, and by the end of this process, and this is why I don't like the pyramid, because it kind of puts remembering at the bottom, but remembering, like that's the only thing you get out of a class, is hopefully you remember something. If you remember nothing, which happens, like I've had classes like that where I took the test, aced it, and now like I have no idea. I don't know what that class was about. But the remembering something new, like getting to the end of that learning journey and having something new for the next class that you take, or the next job, or the next interaction you have, to me, like that's kind of the highest level of learning, is that you went through a process and now you know something new. But this is what students want. They don't want to go through a learning journey. They don't want like learning for learning's sake. I love it. That's why I'm in higher education. And it took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that a lot of people are not there to learn. It's like, oh, what? That's why we're all here. So in terms of like assessing, this was the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and I'll talk about them again. But like, why are students in the classroom? And for the most part, there are like 2 out of 3 students that are here just because they love knowledge. They want to learn something new. It's like, well, that's great. And they should be in college. That's where you can do that. You can learn something new. You can better yourself. You can go through this process. It doesn't necessarily mean that they want to learn numerical methods in a mechanical engineering curriculum. So I can't really rely on I'll connect with 2 out of 3 students just by changing nothing. But if you look at like if students are here for seeking job skills, like give them a competitive edge, now you're talking about close to 9 out of 10 students, where 90 students in a classroom, if you're talking about like this is a skill that will get you a job at, here, I guess, Boeing or what else am I thinking? Microsoft in Connecticut, it's like this will get you a job at Electric Boat, or now it's Raytheon Technical, like Raytheon RTC. But those are the things that students are like, oh, well, now I should pay attention. Why didn't you say that in the beginning? So that's what I started saying in the beginning. So a lot of this is kind of like motivating students through, and that's kind of what education's all about. It's like, you need to you want people to go through the journey, but they have to want to go through the journey. It's like how many therapists does it take to change a light bulb? Have you heard this one? Just one, but the light bulb really has to want to change. And that's kind of how I feel as an educator. Like, how many educators does it take to teach someone a lesson? Just one, but it's all on you. Like, I can only do so much. But this is kind of weird, because students are there because they want a job. They want some kind of competitive edge. And really, that's kind of the selling point of a lot of universities, is that this piece of paper, when we give you this degree, you are now ready to have a job. And people will recognize it, and they'll recognize you for that piece of paper. And it goes against that whole idea that we're here for the journey. We're here to gain skills. We're kind of building this. But the truth is really somewhere in between. Like, higher education is an industry itself. It is a learning journey. It's just like creating a business out of the learning journey, where we're like, that is our skill set. We do it all the time. We love it. We love to teach other people about it. We're excited that it's going to improve all skills. Like, we have these great ideas that if everyone uses this process of critiquing and research and skepticism in any trade, that trade will be better. And that's our big selling point to students, but that one's kind of hard to say of yeah, you're going to learn to learn. People are like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to get out. I want to stop learning. The goal is make money. I don't need to learn anymore. All right, so this leads me into, okay, all right. One more thing about kind of that learning journey. I know, I love this, the hero's journey, the learning journey. So there are these career competencies, what are skills that you need in almost any industry? And this is based on this NACE career competencies. So I'll pull it up just for a second. So they identified 8 skills of these are the things that people need, and if they have these, then they typically quickly rise through the ranks. And so what I do is kind of make sure that students are identifying as they're going through this work that these are the skills that we're working on. As we're remembering things and remembering new things, a lot of that's critical thinking. As we're applying things and analyzing things, we're using self-development and equity and inclusion if we're trying to work with other people and communicate. There's leadership involved in this whole process, where are you stepping up as a leader through this, where are you kind of leading by example through other things. So we're doing, as we go through this process, we're getting these career skills. So I make that clear to students, and I'm trying to make that clear to you as well, to say if you just try to grab hodgepodge, I heard this will stop AI cheating in my classroom. It's kind of well, maybe. Sometimes that'll work, but really a big part of it is the motivation. How do you get some buy-in from students? So enter AI into the classroom. Generative AI during this learning journey. There's two of my favorite articles that I've read about it. One was welcome to campus, here's your chat GPT, of the idea that slide to complete the puzzle. I don't like that. Oh, no, I'm giving up. You read it on your own. No. And then this other, so we'll go to this one. So this one, Chungin Roy Lee at Columbia, and I did grad school at Columbia, so I've been following his whole thing. But he was building agents to cheat the leak code interviews. And he built agents so that he could just take assignments, copy them, copy and paste the result. And, he's getting B's and A's through his classes. mediocre work, but basically for nothing. So, and And so Columbia kind of found out about this because he was like very vocal about it. Really, he's like, his goal is start a company of like, I'm gonna build these cheat bots for everybody. So he's being very vocal about like, look at how awesome I am, and I just got kicked out of this Ivy League university because of how awesome my bots are. But it's still a fun story to follow. And it's an easy, fast solution to a very high stakes, very high priced, like college degree program. So it makes sense that we would want to just like shortcut that whole learning journey and just identify previous knowledge, use AI to identify new knowledge, and turn that in. I'm just like, then we don't need to go through the learning journey in that case. Some of the concerns, kind of going from things that I think I could help with versus at the bottom, it's things that like climate change problems. It's like I'm doing my best here, but I'm only one person. So I do my best, but so benefit, it's fast, but the product becomes more important than the process, which is a big problem, especially for learning when you're trying to build skills and you're young in your career. It's convenient, but this is because it's so convenient, it's propagating a lot of harmful biases in whatever the AI it's trained by these kind of tech bros, continuously like propagating that. And it's easy to use, but the reason it's easy to use is that it's specifically synthetic dialogue to engage users and keep them using it. So it's meant to be something that doesn't let you leave. And then it's great at like filling in these kind of details, but we're kind of like, we're losing a lot of like, we're creating a lot of like data theft and loss of attribution, like all this like intellectual property is just sort of like whew, out the window just because it's kind of fast, easy, convenient. And also another like random anecdote, like The Simpsons, Homer's going to open a drawer for Marge, and he's shoving fireworks into the drawer because it's stuck. And so Marge is like, Homer, don't use fireworks in my kitchen. And he's like, Marge, do you want it done fast or do you want it done right? She's like, well, I'm an American. I want it done fast. So he blows up the fireworks and the drawer goes flying across the room. And in the bottom, I'm not sure how to help this, but like we're supporting this industry that's profits from this consumerism and like controlling access to these resources. So I'm dreading the day when I log into like ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot and it's like, hey, can you help me with this? It's like, yes, I found a new bar of soap that you should buy tomorrow. It's like, oh, God, all right, close forever. So I can't solve everything, but I can like kind of help students navigate some of the first things like harmful biases, making sure that identifying that the process is the product. Like we want the process to be part of our learning. So identifying the challenge kind of with students. I was interviewing like dozens of students and I'll talk about kind of like why I was talking to students a lot more. So dozens-ish, less than 200, probably not 100, but a lot of students. So freshman, sophomore, like for the most part, it was like 95% use it as some kind of teaching aid, where they give it information and tell it like, explain something to me, or explain like I'm 5 or something. They hadn't really been using it as a coding aid. I think part of that is like they're not even sure. Some of them like don't do coding. It's some people give me that. Others, I don't even know if they recognize like AI code as AI assisted code sometimes. It just seems like, well, just the thing gave it to me. I was coding. And so that's a different problem, which I also try to help them with through these conversations. Then versus like seniors, half of them were kind of using some kind of teaching aid versus like 40% using like coding aid. Part of that is that mechanical engineers are not doing a lot of coding, so 40% is probably about how many are regularly coding. And then grad students was another, like way less usage. So at least to me, it seemed like it was an age thing, that the younger the student, the more likely they were using AI as just like part of everything in the thing. So one solution, at least this was a year ago, is just completely ignore AI and go on as business as usual. I didn't want to do that because I was just I wanted to like figure out, it's a new toy, new toy to play with. It's like, all right, let's try it out. Let's see what happens. But that's only going to work for the next like 2 years. In about 2 years, everyone will have, at this point, everyone has access to AI because even a Google search is AI top result. So it's part of life. So I want to at least help navigate like how is that changing the skills that you're trying to get. But then there were like a small group of students that were just avoiding AI. So I dug in a little deeper, and it seemed like they all had like one of three stories. Like a quarter of them were like they feared punishment. Like as if there was if they opened an AI, someone was gonna catch them. 5, okay. Gotcha. Someone was gonna catch them. And then another quarter felt like AI like guided their thing, like they were just getting stuck on whatever AI told them. Like it was too much of an expert that they couldn't change it. And then a third of them were kind of like, I just don't like it. There's just no real reason, but just like, it doesn't sound right. It doesn't look right. So I'll jump into, I started Ungrading in pandemic, but it really helped with a lot of the integration of AI tools. So some things that especially helped with AI was like no late penalties, so students didn't feel like forced to turn in something at midnight on Friday night. They can resubmit. I give them feedback on every assignment, and they can resubmit as many times as they want. So sometimes it's like an 80, but they wanted 100. Resubmit. I give more feedback, then they can resubmit again. And then I tell them like definitely experiment with AI, like and keep track of what's your work and think about how it is your work. And they need help navigating like what is their work, what is an AI work, like is that plagiarism? And it's recognizable, like I can kind of see it, but I can't prove it, and it's mediocre at best. So basically a B, which, hey, pay your fees, get your Bs. It gets you out the door. It does get that degree. But I can keep, with ungrading, I can keep like a really high standard of like, well, we don't want an AI, we don't want B-level AI work, even with grade inflation. We want that to be a little bit better, so we can kind of go back and forth. So I ask students to use the AI, justify, I'll go a little fast. So AI in the wild. Here's a couple of targeted case studies that I use for AI in the classroom. First one, oh no, of course, no, we can't see it. Anyway, so I had students do prompt engineering to have the AI generate instructions on how to brush your teeth. If I make it smaller, no, anyway. How to brush your teeth and then edit those instructions. So prompt engineering and then editing, and then the main thing here was keeping track of your own work. So we used a cosine similarity with term frequency, inverse document frequency, almost like a plagiarism checker sort of thing, just to see like, is it 90% the same or 10% the same? Like how much did you change? And the thing that I thought was cool, so they did that for themselves and kind of justified like 80% is good enough. Like that, now it's my work, or maybe 50% is good enough, but it gave them a marker of like, what do I claim as my own? How do I claim it? The thing that I thought was cool here was that if I just compared all 21 student texts, there was a lot broader cosine similarity, like things got more varied as people edited their work. So even if you just take AI and edit it, and it's all of like 5 minutes, it's a toothbrushing set of instructions. It was just a few minutes of editing, and now it becomes like much more human, much more varied. Meanwhile, like AI texts alone, it's very much a normal distribution. Like if you say anything about toothbrushing instructions, it's gonna give you something that sounds like this AI toothbrushing thing. Okay, so getting a little more advanced here. had, like, if they're going to generate things with AI, it's like, well, then I'll generate some stuff too. So I made I called it a learning coach. And so this student said, like, okay, test my knowledge of module 1. It's one of the pre-designed like prompts that it can give. And then give me an A, B, or C of my understanding. So then the AI just started generating questions. And so it's like, what is the print function? It's like, print is this. And then there was one where he said, like, I'm stuck. Yeah, here. So it's like, no worries, let's go through it. So then it explained like what that was and then generated a new question, and this was really cool, not so much that like this is a great test. This is a great test to give students and like really trust the results. I agreed in general, kind of 85% of the assessments that it gave, but I was checking every single line of the conversation. Like I went through and checked the whole conversation, and I wanted to see like how people are interacting with this coach. I found out of the 76 things that got turned in, 6 of them had like straight up misinformation where the AI said like, you're right because of something, like it was just trying to like backpedal and make sense of what they said. I'm like, no, you're way off. So I would write a note to the student of like, hey, it said you were right. Like I'm still giving you credit. Like I'm not penalizing you for this, but like it's way off. Let's cover this. And that was also like a nice, students really appreciated like the human interaction there. Like this was cool and novel, but having someone monitor it. So then the last case was like the real wild, where we were in this data-driven decisions course. It was like write a chapter, like a case study for this open educational textbook, and we'll publish it on the website. And now students, it was just open. Like you just had to find something about engineering with uncertainty in it and then make some statements. So it was practicing technical writing, not so much programming. So this was really, I was saying in the beginning, like we don't have to worry about object-oriented programming practice. This was like, well, if it gives us the result, we're really just trying to interpret the result. And we did a lot of like dialogues in the classroom of critiquing and assessing like outputs that it was giving us throughout this time, and then ended up with 0. I'm out. Okay, so it is really cool. Give it. So there were just quick highlight of so some people were looking at like wind turbines. One person was looking at like strokes gained on the PGA Tour and went through a whole like analysis of like uncertainty in sports performance and stuff. And this kind of stuff, you can't really do that with just like a quick intro to tech writing course. So some conclusions: it's the Wild West out here. We need your help. Students need some like guided help in terms of like what is effective AI use versus just unethical like plagiarism of AI. It's a great way to build career skills because students like it and they're excited about it. It engages and motivates, but as long as you're like emphasizing like we need to go through this journey together, then you can keep it. So AI courses are packed. They really like it. All right, sorry, I'm way out of time. I used up some of the question time. Sorry about that.
Give a big round of applause. Thank you. So lots of interest in the thread. We only have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions.
Oh, sorry.
So I saw that there were 2 questions about ungrading. So we'll ask the first one on ungrading.
Yes. Join me. Start ungrading. Yes.
Deep Yemen asks, with ungrading and allowing students to resubmit repeatedly, how does this affect you as the grader, for example, increased workload? I'm not an educator, but as an open source maintainer, I get very frustrated that the effort to generate and update some AI-generated submissions, like pull requests, is so low.
Yes.
But I still have to spend the effort to respond and guide them and support that community, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and so like sometimes, especially I guess there were kind of 2 parts to that. One is like, what is the increased workload of like unlimited submissions? And if you're talking about pull requests, that is definitely an unlimited submission sort of thing. Someone can just keep spamming you with the same pull request. And then, so there's that part. And then there's also the part about like, you know, it's AI. You're looking at it and you can tell it's AI generated. So the thing that I kind of learned, especially from ungrading, was like dialogue has been really helpful for that. Most of the time, it's kind of like pointing to code and asking like, hey, this is an interesting choice. Like, you know it's AI, but you can ask them like, why did you do it this way? Or what you can say like, was this AI assisted work? So you can kind of point it out, not in like a gotcha way, but in a way of like, do you think this is still adding to the project? Like, is this creating new information, or is this sort of like regurgitating things that have already been done from a large language model? Because if that's all you're doing, then it's sort of like bringing your project down to B-level work when it's like we want to maintain A+ level work. So that's one way of doing it.